Well, hello again. This is Tony Moore, and this is my podcast number 2. This time, instead of talking about my wonderful past, I'm going to be talking about some of the stories from my. The book is called Convenient Lies Connecting the Dots. Why I say connecting the dots is that my book will take you through the most catastrophic failures our governments have created since the mid 60s, in fact. But for today's podcast, number 2, I'm going to be talking about the war on drugs. How many of you have actually heard that phrase, the war on drugs? Well, the war on drugs was started by Richard Nixon. He claimed it as a campaign ploy, and I'm going to say ploy. He thought that he could divide the country. His White House counsel, John Elrickman, who was very close to Nixon, told a reporter afterwards in an interview for TV that this was nothing more than a divisive ploy to try and get votes. Well, after the Kennedy assassination, he got the votes and he came in. But what was the war on drugs? Well, it was supposed to be something where America was made aware that drugs were a problem. Now, 45 years ago. What has happened since then? How much have we spent? What people have we got involved? And this is where the story gets incredible. We have now got the DEA, the ATF, the DHS, the CIA, we have satellite surveillance, we have our military forces, and all of those combined is over 300,000 people that are involved in one way or another with the so-called war on drugs.
Really? You've got to be
Yes,
kidding.
really. That is the case, really. So we've got 300,000 people that we're paying for out of our taxes. Have they been successful? I'm going to show you a graph now, which shows you the complete and utter catastrophe that has been America's war on drugs. And believe me, it is a catastrophe. Look at this graph. Yeah, I know. See how the drug use has climbed and climbed and climbed? Till now it's reached epidemic proportions. I'm going to read you some statistics from what I've dug up. This is also in my book. AmericanAddiction.org estimates that 741,000 adolescents suffered from illicit drug use. That's 750,000. And do you know what? Those numbers start at age 12. Think about this. Age 12. We have illicit drug use from age 12. What the hell are the parents and the schools and everybody else that's supposed to have our children's health and well-being? What are they doing? Well, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health shows that 19.7 million American adults aged 12 and above battled addiction. So what does that number mean? In 2020, grew to 37 million. So are we effective at stopping drugs coming into the country? No, we're not. The numbers grew and they've been growing exponentially ever since 1968 when the numbers were quite low. So we've got 300,000 people that we're paying to deal with drugs, DEA, ATF, all of the above. Most of the drugs, nearly all of the drugs are coming in one place. They're coming in through Mexico, through the now open southern border. So let me ask you this. Do you think the border is under control? I'm going to put these numbers back up again. Do you think it's under control? And we're not talking about illegal immigrants. We're just talking drugs. It's not under control. Don't believe what you're being told by Mayorkas and Biden. The border's under control. Look at these numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the numbers. I'm putting them up there again. It's not under control by any stretch of the imagination. Yet Mayorkas is telling us it's under control. Do these numbers show that the border is under control?
Really? You've got
No,
to
they
be
don't.
kidding.
So what are they talking about? Why are they lying? Overdose deaths. Now, when I say overdose deaths, they just put it down as drug overdose. That's it. Deal with the body. 700,000, and it's climbing. It's climbing at more than 100 deaths a month.
Wow, that's
And we're
bad.
told that the border is under control. That 700,000 represents 700,000 families, 750,000 families that have been deprived of their loved ones, their sons, their daughters, their husbands, their wives, their family members who have died from overdose. What do we call an overdose? Well, now I'm going to bring you on to, yeah, that number is stunning, isn't it? 700,000, all coming through an open border, which Trump tried to complete and Biden decided to stop. Why would you stop building a border to prevent this country's people and children, 12 years and above, from having drug addiction? Why would you do that? Does that make sense to you? Is that anti-American? No country can be a country when it hasn't got a border. No country. And he'll say, with the borders under control. Talking to the Border Patrol guards there, they tell us it's not under control. So why have we got this situation where we've got drugs pouring into the country through one place, an open border? Let's talk about what's made this whole situation even worse. We're going to talk about fentanyl. When we talk about fentanyl, we're talking about a drug that is 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times stronger than morphine. Fentanyl is made in China. It's now being made in places in Mexico. So with all our satellite surveillance, where you can tell where a poppy field is, you can spot it from space. Why is it still being produced? Why haven't the consecutive governments, both left and right, dealt with this problem? We hear that the cartels are this, the cartels are that, the cartels are strong. Do you really think the cartels are stronger than the might of the American army?
No.
Don't believe it for a minute. I'll come on to how we should deal with this at the end. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. Drug trafficking organizations typically distribute fentanyl by the kilogram. 1 kilogram of fentanyl has the potential to kill 500,000 people.
Wow, that's bad.
Yeah, that's bad. 150 people every day die from fentanyl poisoning and overdose. Between 2020 and 2021, fentanyl deaths rose 38%. 38%. Can you believe this? Yeah, it's bad. Most of the drugs were mass produced in secret factories in Mexico by the Sinaloa and Jalisco drug cartels, which use chemicals sourced in China. China, our friend? No, it's not. More than 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses just last year, and 2/3 were attributed to fentanyl. The DEA says that they intercepted 379 million fentanyl doses. Just 2 milligrams of fentanyl will kill you.
Really? You've got to be
The
kidding.
DEA has boasted that it seized more than 10,000 pounds, 4,500 kilograms of fentanyl, as well as over 50 million fentanyl pills that were made to resemble other drugs. I'm going to ask you something here. If we know that they're all coming in through the southern border, why has the president, Joe Biden, not closed the border? You've seen from the graphs that the numbers of overdoses, the number of addicts has climbed drastically. I'm showing you a graph here to compare just the last few years, under Trump and under Joe Biden. Look at those numbers. See how it's climbed? Trump was getting control of the border. Biden has left it open. You've got to ask yourself, why would you want an open border into America, allowing millions of drugs to come through that kill American people, deprive families of their loved ones? Does this make sense to you? Why hasn't Mayorkas, who is responsible for this catastrophe, been impeached? What are they waiting for? You've seen my numbers. and they're good numbers. At the bottom of my podcast, I'm going to show you where to look for those numbers, all the numbers that I've been using. This is a catastrophic failure. I'm going to show you a graph now that shows you what the proportionate spending is on treatment and on prevention. It is disproportionate. Look at this graph. The dark blue area shows you treatment. The pale green area is showing you what we're doing to try and prevent drugs coming in, prevent addiction. It's completely the wrong way. What we've been doing for the last 45 years is dealing with the effect without dealing with the cause. Could we take down the cartels? Yes, we could. Could we destroy their finances? Yes, we could. Through the SWIFT banking system. We can lock them out of their finances completely. And I've got a message for you, Mexico. If you won't deal with this, we will. And you've heard that from President Trump. One of the things I'm going to do, if Mexico won't deal with the cartels, he will. Now, this is a man that sent 58 cruise missiles across to Syria to show the Syrians and the Russians that we would not tolerate the murder of children and parents and mothers. Chlorine gas, actually, not nerve gas. What did Obama do with that? He made a line in the sand, cross this line, and there'll be consequences. Well, they did cross the line, not 6 weeks later, and he did nothing. When they crossed the line with Trump, he sent them 58 cruise missiles to absolutely annihilate their manufacturing. So do we believe that if Trump says, I'm going to deal with the cartels, I like to think he will deal with them. So what could we do? There's no point in raising the issue without coming up with some solutions. So what can we do? Well, the first thing that we can do is that we can make the cartels terrorist organizations. So if we make them a terrorist organization, we lock them out of their finances and choke off their supply. Next, a 1-2 bash, we destroy the poppy fields. I don't know whether you know this. I mean, I've got a whole chapter on Afghanistan, but we were in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, by the way, is where 90% of the world's illicit drugs come from. 90%. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years. We had 138,000 troops. We had $7.5 billion worth of the most advanced fighting equipment in the world. While we were there, drugs were funding the Taliban, who we were fighting. We're there spending trillions of dollars, leaving all our equipment behind, while the Taliban are getting funds from the opioids that they're creating. Does this make sense to you? It certainly doesn't make damn sense to me. How do the Taliban, creating 90% of the world's opioids, illegal opioids, how do they get them into America? Do they have planes? Do we give them the okay, the green light to fly into America and drop their drugs off? No. So how are those drugs getting to America? Well, enter the CIA. Those drugs are coming into this country directly from Afghanistan. We even built an airbase, the Bagram Air Base. $85 million it cost us. We left it behind. I'll explain this to you. We're fighting a war in Afghanistan for 20 years. We've got billions of dollars of equipment there, and we're paying for this week by week in salaries, wages, satellite surveillance, gun crews, munitions, you name it. And all the time we were there, opioids increased fourfold.
Wow, that's
Yes,
bad.
I know it's bad. Fourfold while we were there. So what the hell were we doing there? You've got to ask these questions. And my book called Convenient Lies, Connecting the Dots, I've got a lot on this, the chapter on drugs. This is only a 10-minute podcast, so I'm trying to encapsulate it. I've got 10 steps of things that we could do to curtail this. So I'm just going to read it out to you. We make the cartels terrorist organizations. We can do that overnight. Freeze all their assets worldwide through the SWIFT international banking system. Freezing their accounts using our military might, then we will blow out all the poppy fields. And yeah, we can do it in Afghanistan. We can do it in Mexico. Demand to know why our war on drugs has failed so miserably and who is responsible for this war on drugs failure. And I'm not talking about a failure, I'm talking about a catastrophic failure on both sides of the aisle because they've both been in power. We must demand accountability from our government. We should demand to know where this $1 trillion has gone because it hasn't gone to drug prevention. Eliminate the use of private contractors for our security. DynCorp is a private contractor who have been proven to be doing drug trafficking. DynCorp are paid by the government. The leaders of our so-called drug enforcement agency must be replaced. They have done sweet Fanny Adams to stop the war on drugs. And I don't care how many millions of pills they say they've collected. If they were effective gone up, why has drug abuse gone up? Why have we got so many deaths every single month? Eradicate the poppy fields. Money should go, we can eradicate the poppy fields. We can do that with our smart bombs. Pinpoint accuracy. When we were in Afghanistan, there was an English professor who was invited to watch over 200 raids live stream. As he's watching, he's looking at the bomb going down. The camera is on the bomb. And he said afterwards, my goodness, we have such incredible accuracy. The bombs were landing on this hut and that hut. But this is a man, an Englishman, who has studied drug production, especially in Afghanistan, for more than 20 years. What did he see? He said, I saw the bombs going off, I saw the exploding, but he said, I know what drug production looks like. There are telltale signs, things that you see around the building. He said, what I saw was not drug productions being annihilated. It was just huts, nothing to do with drugs. Now, this is a man that was invited to watch this on live stream. He said it was incredible. The accuracy of the American bombs were incredible. Never seen anything like it. But what were they bombing? They were not bombing drug-making facilities. They were bombing huts. So you have deception. You have a catastrophic failure. And I have to say this, that if, according to Occam's razor theory, in the absence of any other information, the obvious answer is the one that stares you in the face. If our government have not done anything to secure our borders and have not curtailed drug use, which has gone up, as I'm going to show you again how much it's gone up, then they are part of the problem. Will we ever win this? Not unless someone else takes the reins. So, to recap, make the cartels terrorist organizations, freeze their assets, bomb the shit out of these poppy fields, and keep doing it until they get the message. Afghanistan farmers, well, there's many other things they can grow that are more lucrative than drugs. So grow something else. Maybe grow things to feed the people instead of destroying the people. America is 5% of the world's population. Just 5%, 365 million people. But we consume more than 80% of the world's illegal opioids.
No.
So 20% goes to other places. We are 80% of the users of the drugs that are manufactured, 90% of which are made in Afghanistan. Is this getting through to you, this message? I damn well hope so. Our son was addicted, but not through street drugs like that. He went to hospital with Stephen Johnson syndrome. He had blisters over 97% of his body. The hospital, in their wisdom, gave him morphine instead of some other drug to help with the pain. My wife Sue and I were watching as the morphine hit his bloodstream. That was what triggered his addiction. And I'll come on again. I'll talk about Dr. Eric Davis, who is the leading authority on the nature of addiction in this country. He's a friend of mine. We'll talk about the nature of addiction in another podcast. Suffice it to say, I've outlined the problem to you. Let me ask you something. Does drug addiction come up in the voting? Is it something that even interests Americans? Many of you looking at this will be saying, yeah, well, I don't take drugs. Just choose to stop. If they could do that, do you think we would have an addiction problem? Addiction rewires the brain. The person that you knew before they became addict is not the person that is now addicted. They're not the same. So I hope that I've woken you up to what the real situation is with drugs. I know it's bad. Next time we'll be talking about more from my own life story. So I'm interspersing my podcast with things from my book, Convenient Lies: Connecting the Dots, inspired by Colonel Andy O'Meara. And then I'll be talking about stories of fantastic people I've met. I hope you found this podcast interesting. Goodbye.